Welcome to another edition of Viking Voices. Today we have current student athlete Myles Smith, a member of the Western Washington University track and field squad, primarily a 400 runner, 200 runner, and also a clutch relay finisher for the Vikings. Welcome to the podcast, Viking Voices, Myles.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on here, Jeff. I'm looking forward to the discussions that we're going to get into today. And I really appreciate you putting on this project for Black History Month. It's an honor to me to be a part of this. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. You are our third guest and part of Black History Month that we're having conversations with some of our Black student athletes, past and present, and some of our coaches to hear their story and learn more about their journey to Western and their journey as student athletes. And Myles, thank you for letting us have this opportunity. We're going to touch on a little bit of everything today. You as a student athlete, you as a kinesiology major, you as a runner, and then also as you as just a voice on this campus for the Black community. Something that I have really grown to learn about you since I've gotten to know you is all the good that you are doing, and I can't wait to share that with everyone. When we talk about Myles, we're talking about someone that's an advocate. We're talking about someone that's cares about diversity and equity. And we're talking about someone that is just defines the term student athlete. So Myles, I'm just excited to get going here and to dive in and have a great conversation with you.
Sounds good. Thank you for the introduction again. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're majoring in here at Western, what your career path you hope to have, and what year you are at Western. I know it gets a little bit track and field, you can have different eligibilities, and also with COVID last year, what's your true year in school? And just give us a little bit of background on where you're from.
Absolutely. So, I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. I was born out in Arizona in a hot, humid state. But, I made my way out here when I was about 3 years old. And actually, we moved to Bellingham. So actually, Bellingham was the first city I lived in Washington State. And then after that, I grew up in the Puyallup, Tacoma area and attended Puyallup High School. And so that's kind of a little bit about my background. A lot of my family comes from down south. So I do have a strong knowledge of, that area as well, just from, my mom's side. And then what led me to Western really was just, and it's, the initial recruiting process. I was fortunate enough to, get a spot on the team, during my senior year of high school. And so I was really excited to, just attend the university in that aspect, just to, be a student athlete. And then as soon as I started kind of researching more about the school, I noticed, a lot about the kinesiology program. And it's just such a wonderful program at Western and has great professors. And, during my senior year, I tore my ACL and underwent 2 surgeries. And so that whole year, I spent a whole year rehabbing. And that's what initially led me to my interest in kinesiology as well, and why I was so passionate about, getting to Western and applying for the kin major. And so after that whole experience, rehabbing for a year and talking with, PTs and doctors, and kind of also just learning a little bit more about the inequalities within the system, even at that point, I was like, man, I really do want to go into this field and help make a difference and provide more healthcare opportunities for Black and Brown communities. And so that's kind of what led me into the kinesiology major, specifically with PT, just with that ACL surgery. I had 2 surgeries, and that's what led me to kinesiology. And then I'm also doing the physical education and health major as well, kind of a double major, learning more about PE and health, because before I do PT, I want to go into teaching and be a PE teacher first and work with youth, because I'm really passionate about that as well. And so got a lot of definitely plans on my mind, but I'm just so excited to take the steps to get there. And I'm very thankful for, my parents for always supporting me through this journey as well. And a lot of my mentors out there that just have helped me become the person I am today. I definitely would not be sitting here today without, a lot of the folks that helped me get here. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me and my journey. So, yeah.
I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about your role on the track and field team. Kind of, you're a senior. I'm going to call you a senior. You're a senior leader. You have the awesome distinction of the school indoor record holder for the 400 meters set last year at the GNEC championships. And, you've been a part of some winning relay teams as that final leg. So tell us a little bit about your role on the team, some of your connections with your teammates and you've told me about some of the people that you look up to on the team, both when you came here and also just the current teammates?
Yeah, definitely. So, my role in the team, I would say, is being, a supporter and an inspirer. When I first came in as a freshman, I didn't really have the opportunity to race in a whole lot of meets because I was still injured, and I just I didn't quite have the times to get in. So a lot of times, I would be there just cheering for my teammates, and I was just really passionate about showing that support to everyone, because when you are in sports and you can be a part of a culture where your teammates care and they really want to see you do well, it's just a beautiful thing. And so right from the get-go, I always made it a a major thing just to show my love to people. At practice, always cheering for them, traveling to meets, even if I wasn't necessarily competing and I couldn't go and I couldn't run in the races, I would still go and cheer on my teammates. And so I would say being a supporter is a big one. Always checking in with my teammates. And this year's been a little bit hard with COVID and my work schedule. So the last few months have been a little bit tough with that. But overall, just throughout the last 4 years, that's what I really prided myself in. And also as well, being a part of 3 conference championship teams, I'm really proud of everyone who put in the work to make that happen. That's a whole team effort, right? And so we had a lot of people. So I'm pretty sure at a couple we had everybody score, right? And so our coaches have just done a wonderful job with preparing us for a lot of these meets, both mentally and physically. And so I would say as a supporter and also as an inspirer, I'd say when I get on that relay leg, I give it everything I have always, and you can see it in my face. I just want to go so hard to the point where you can't go. That's just how I've always played sports. And I would say being an inspirer is another role of mine on the team as well.
Well, it's a perfect segue into my next question, because in addition to being an inspirer on the team, you're an advocate on campus for a number of areas. And I just want to touch on those areas because I found them to be so incredibly important, not just in the last year that I've really learned that about you, but the whole way through your college career, I've seen you grow from a shy young man into this amazing leader and mentor in so many different areas. So talk about that advocacy that you are so passionate about on campus, not only as a Black student athlete, but just as a Black young man, that you are doing such great things. Talk about some of the areas that you're touching as an advocate, some of the groups that you're part of, some of your goals. And this is going to be a little bit of a longer question, because I think this is one of the most important is what are some of those things that you're just diving into right now, and tell us about what your goals are in that area.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that segue. I'm excited to talk about this because I've been involved in a few different things on campus, and the biggest one, for me is just the Black and Brown's Men's Resiliency Program and the Black and Brown Male Success Collective that we've fostered, really in this past, 2 years. Brandon Joseph, he's my mentor, and he leads the group along with Lucas and Dr. J as professors on campus, and they really help point a lot of students in a direction of social justice and advocacy, and just learning about how to educate ourselves more. For me, that group's been a huge support system, and that's kind of where I first really made my connections with Jalen and Eric. I met them as freshmen, and so those guys have had my back since day one, and we've done a lot within that program. We led a discussion over the summer with I think around 200 faculty and students about social justice, and it was in reaction to a lot of the social unrest that was occurring with at the height of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and we really just set the space to help people heal and have their voices told. And so that was, I would say, one of my biggest projects I've been a part of. It was a pretty long process preparing for that, but Jalen, again, he was a huge support system in getting that going. And I was able to share some of my poetry in that space. And so the Black and Brown Male Success Collective has been a huge space for me. And in addition to that, you know, in my major, I'm a part of the biology and specifically like anatomy and physiology club. And so this is a group of students who have took the class, who are TAs for the class like me now, and then also former students who graduated. And within this space, we hold conversations about like healthcare equity, and we also like mentor current students across different generations. So we've had people in this group that, you know, graduated from Western 7 years ago. And we actually just met on the 14th on Valentine's Day. We had our first meeting yesterday, and me and a few other students helped lead that. And we're all about just, you know, mentorship and connecting students and helping them really like learn more about the field, because that's something that I'm trying to learn myself, right? The healthcare field is so broad, and there's so much to learn. And so I've been also networking with a lot of former students at Western and connecting them with current students. That's been one of my current projects right now, is talking about healthcare equity and peer mentoring through anatomy and physiology. And Professor Yamamoto, I'm not sure if you know her, but she's an amazing professor, and she's been a huge part of fostering that space. In addition to that, I've also mentored students and helped them get into the kinesiology major. A few students came to me about a year ago, African-American students, and they just wanted to like get some more insight and advice on how to get in. So I've also mentored some students and helped them get in the major as well. And then Compass to Campus has also been a big one too. You know, I love Compass to Campus, and they do amazing things, you know, with the university and through all the schools out in the greater Bellingham area. And I started Compass Campus my freshman year, and I'm still involved now. So, you know, even though I can't necessarily go to the school and mentor kids, I do email pen pals. So I actually email like middle school students and just send them like words of encouragement and advice and check in with them. And so that's probably been one of my most favorite things I've been involved with on campus, was the C2C program, just because, you know, I was able to go into school and, you know, eat lunch with the kids and tell them a little bit about the university. And I also helped them apply for the College Bound Scholarship, which starts, I believe, in 8th grade, and help students get more funding when they get in college. So, you know, I was going to the lunchroom, handing out applications for that. You know, they're 8th graders, but I was like, hey, you know, like this is going to help you in the future. And so I've really took it upon myself to be a mentor to youth. Cause, you know, I'm just passionate about inspiring folks. And, you know, whenever I go into school, and I could see, you know, I see their faces, and, you know, I'd be out at recess, I'd read to them in the classroom. It was an amazing experience. So those are like, I would say the 4 things that strike out the most for me. So yeah.
We can go on and on and on, and the word ambassador and leader come to my mind after hearing all those things, and we haven't even touched on everything. One of the great things that I learned about you was you're so involved with the BIPOC community, and one of the things that you mentioned, that one of your goals, and even talking to the VP over athletics, is kind of having some academic support for BIPOC in the athletic department. Talk about how that came up, and what are some of your goals in that area, and how that's going. Because the more I learn about you is that, you know, you've got your tentacles out there in so many different great areas, but this is one area where I think that you're really, really passionate about, is bringing something into the department for the future of student athletes.
Yeah, definitely. You know, so with this project I've been working on within the athletic department, it really was in reaction to me kind of learning a little bit more about sport as a microcosm of society. And, you know, what that means to me is that a lot of the systems of oppression that we see in the broader scope of the world, they exist within athletics, right? And so we have so much power as a program to, you know, address these systems, and also just make it a warm space for student athletes, and really like, you know, help them achieve successes within graduation, and also being successful on, you know, the track, on the court, wherever it is. And so, you know, within the athletic department, I've networked with coaches, and I've also networked with people across campus, like Brandon, and also, the VP of Students, Belinda Husky, and we've talked a little bit about like how we can provide more cultural and academic support for student athletes. And so that's kind of been my main mission, is looking at how we can do that, right? And one of the things that I learned within the past month was that the NCAA has also started to talk about this, right? And so, being a part of the NCAA, we do have a lot of power to address systems of oppression. And, with this project, we're looking at, helping more students get these areas of support, like academic and cultural support, when they come right into Western, right when they're freshmen. I think during my experience, I learned about a lot of these, like there's so many different great resources across campus, but sometimes it's hard to actually, understand like how to go there, or when, or, like if you're able to, what time. Like there's so many different factors that play into a person being aware of resources, even like the tutoring center. And so, this project has really just been all about ushering students to these support areas as soon as they come in, so they know where the Black Student Union is, right? They know where to go for that if they're ever feeling, not culturally supported on campus. And so that's kind of a little bit about, that project. And we've put a lot of work into this, and it's really exciting seeing some of the things that have happened. And it's been a blessing being able to, just network, and also just see the support from people in the department and athletics. That's what this is all about. And so I'm really glad that, folks are coming together. And it's been a great experience, and I'm really proud to like finish, on this note, as a senior, and be a part of this project, and really just like help make more strides in the future for folks.
You are definitely starting some projects that will have a lasting legacy. And I was part of that talk that you guys gave, I believe it was in June or July, with over 200 people that Brandon, Joseph, and your group helped organize. And it was amazing. You guys did such a great job. That event, did that kind of help give you a little bit of confidence too, in terms of a lot of what you're doing and advocating involves exposing yourself a little bit and being out there, and it's okay to be uncomfortable in situations, right? I mean, public speaking is a tough thing. Giving presentations is a tough thing. Has this helped you realize what you're capable of as a young man, to have that confidence to talk and lead these things?
Absolutely. I can remember, last spring, heading into that meeting, I was definitely, nervous. I didn't know how many people were, gonna, show up, or, even just like, understand, like say what I was saying, right? And it was extremely helpful to be a part of that meeting, and to have like, the mentors in that group, like Dr. J, Lucas, and Brandon, just work with me on how I can like understand how to address systems of oppression, and also like better my confidence in doing that, right? Because a lot of these conversations and a lot of these meetings that we have over Zoom, and that we've had over Zoom in the past 6-7 months, have been all about addressing these issues. And in order to do that, confidence is key, right? And that's something that I've struggled with over the years, just in my own personal experiences growing up. And so they've always had my back, and they've really helped me sort of just like blossom and have more confidence in myself to have these discussions. And I've always cared about these issues, but I didn't always necessarily have like the words or the confidence in myself to speak. And so with my writing and my poetry, I know that a little bit about that. I've always done that ever since I was a kid. I have a couple of journals that have some words that I wrote when I was in like 3rd grade that I still look at every once in a while. And so I've always loved writing and public speaking too. It's just been the confidence part. And so, man, that discussion in the spring definitely helped me get more confidence in myself, and also just feel more supported too, because so many people showed up to that meeting. I know you were there, and it was great. It was great to see you on there too, and talk to you. And That was just huge. I mean, that I know a lot of students across campus felt very supported in that space. And so, yeah, I think vividly back on it a lot. So
Brandon Joseph, you mentioned his name a few times. He's become a friend of mine. He has an athletics background, working at the University of Louisville. Always been a fan of the GNAC. He grew up in Fairbanks. So Brandon's done wonderful things in just a short amount of time on our campus. And it's been exciting to learn from him. I've had a couple conversations that, he definitely knows and makes you feel like you want to learn these things. So it's great to connect the dots on these, because he's a friend of ours, a friend of mine, and he's made a great impact on you. And he is a BIPOC. He's a Native American, and you have a little connection to that. I read up on you, and I think it was on your LinkedIn profile. You were a student mentor out in Lummi Nation. Probably ties into the PE side of things that you want to do. I don't know if it was an internship, but talk about what you did out in the Lummi Nation. For those listeners that don't know, Lummi Nation is Bellingham. It's the native land that we live on and our campus sits on. Talk about that experience and the mentorship that you're able to have, and what you learned working out there.
Yeah, being out in Lummi was an amazing experience. And a lot of the native students there, I really felt like when I first came there, they were really welcoming. And I think that it was really helpful for them to also have a person of color, in their space and in their classroom, like sitting right next to them, reading to them, with them at recess. And, those students there, they were amazing and just so bright and caring. And I remember I was in an art class, and one of the students, after a few weeks I was there, made me like a bracelet. I was just like, man, I love being here with these kids. And, specifically in a lot of the classrooms, a lot of it was just one-on-one work with students. And whether it was like English or math. And so that was really helpful, just to kind of like get a little bit more insight on how to, work with the kid in a one-on-one setting and, encourage them, right? Because reading can be hard, at young ages. And so it was a great experience being able to, always encourage and inspire them. And they inspired me too, because they worked really hard, and the community up there was, just very warm and welcoming to me. I was just, thankful to be invited to a few ceremonies as well. I think it was in the springtime. And it was a blessing. And I also got a chance to mentor at Nooksack Valley Middle School as well. And so, another school where a high percentage of BIPOC students as well. And I love working with youth, and also BIPOC youth too. Because when I was a young kid, I didn't have a BIPOC teacher until I think about sixth grade it was. So a lot of those younger years, it's extremely helpful being able to see someone that looks like you, that's, able to, give you advice and encouragement and just, overall academic support. So I love being up at Lummi.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring to hear all the areas that you've touched in just a short amount of time up here at college. But I want to segue kind of into the main topic here that we're talking to you, Myles. And February is Black History Month, and I think it is just a great conversation to have. And a question that I just want to ask you is, what does Black History Month mean to you?
For me, I would say, with Black History Month, it's a time for the Black community to be able to, showcase our history, especially with how this country has portrayed our history. They've often, just silenced it, right? A lot of times throughout history, when you look at things like the Civil Rights Movement, when you look online, a lot of those pictures are in black and white. And, they did that for a reason, and they're intentional with that. And so with Black History Month, it's a time for us to really illuminate and highlight, the beauty of Black culture and Black history. And so that kind of leads me into talking a little bit about the power of counter storytelling. And that specifically addresses disenfranchised groups, and it helps them tell their stories from their perspective, not from a perspective of, say, like the oppressor, but from, our perspective. And I think that's just an amazing thing. And, whenever I look on, social media or talk to people about, Black folks throughout history, it's just a beautiful thing. Cause, when I was in school, I never learned that. Like, it just wasn't something that was talked about in school. And it's important to know that Black history is American history. And, we're a part of this country's history. And so to have, you know, to have this month is, Carter by Carter G. Woodson, you know, it's a beautiful thing. And so that's what I would say, what it means to me. It's just being able to tell our stories, and, also from our perspective as well.
How do we extend these conversations? Just, it's not about February. How do we extend these conversations and make sure that we extend these conversations to 365 days a year, 12 months, and in the summer when there's not stuff going on college campus? How do we continue to learn and have these conversations that are so important for all of us?
Yeah, for helping these conversations, stay rich and be rich throughout the whole year, I think that it starts with more people, just sharing history and sharing stories. I think social media has a huge power these days. And I think the more people that do share, Black history, whether it's in academic spaces or, in social media throughout the whole year, I think that will help, highlight, this country's history in a regard that, shows respect. And I think that all communities need to be able to tell their history throughout the whole year. And, just to give you a specific example, I think that it does start in the education system, right? I think that, in history classes, Black history needs to be talked about more, and it needs to be protected more. And so I think, when we go through these younger grades, when we learn that this is a standard to be able to celebrate, history for a full year and to always, uplift it, I think that can help future generations to come, when we've sort of like normalized it, right? Like, this is what we do. We talk about Black history, always, right? And because, I always will, especially when I have kids, and so I would say teaching it more at younger ages and sharing it more, whether it's in, like I said, in social media or academic spaces, and whatnot. So, yeah.
How much have you learned about your family in terms of history through as you have evolved and as you have as matured now as a college student in your 20s? How much have you kind of dove in and learned more about your family history and more about your Black history, and how that's been an impactful part of the person that you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I appreciate you for bringing that up, because I think learning about your own family history is extremely empowering. And, for my story, learning about my family's, Black history, it was a challenge at a younger age, because I wasn't always connected with, my family in the South. And my dad was adopted. And so a lot of times I was always asking so many questions as a kid, like, man, I want to know, like, I would just want to know more about my family, but it was always hard because some stories didn't always get passed down, right? Because of things like slavery, and, these systems of oppression that take away our ability to learn about it. But with that, I think the power is when you do get a chance to learn about it, you hold that so tight to yourself, because, even if it's only a few stories, you'll always be able to know those. And so, in my family, we call our grandma's Big Mama. And so, my Big Mama was from Gainesville, Texas. And, she was a nurse. And so that's a huge inspiration to me to know that, my Big Mama, she was a nurse, and she was in the healthcare system, right? And so, that, and to have that history in my family was always something as a kid I always like looked up to, because, when she was, I believe, around the fifth or sixth grade, she had to learn how to do math because her family was being cheated in their money, right? And so, because our family, they were sharecroppers, and so a lot of times they would get cheated out of their money. And so when she was a young kid, she she saw that happen, and she counted the money, and she knew what was going on. I have so much love and respect for her, and you know, she, I know she's a huge inspiration to my mom as well. And she passed away when I was younger, um, but yeah, those stories, those family stories are huge, So I would say um, it's really important to just hold those tight, because you don't always get to know them.
Pretty great. You have some unique connections to Bellingham. You said you moved up here when you were about 3. I believe your father went to high school in Bellingham and Seaholm. Talk about some of the challenges that you heard, not only yourself has had as a young Black man moving back to Bellingham, but your father growing up in Bellingham and Whatcom County and going to Seaholm. What are some of those challenges that you've endured and had to overcome moving up to Whatcom County and to Western?
Yeah, so I would say, in Whatcom County and moving up to the Western Washington University area, I think, with it being a predominantly white institution, it is a challenge navigating, right? And so with my dad being in the area as a young kid, I think he definitely really longed for that cultural support, but it was just challenging to find back then, because I think also at that time there's probably less diversity in the area, and so I can remember him telling me that when he first I think traveled elsewhere outside of the Whatcom County, it was just, a beautiful, beautiful experience being able to be around, more Black students. And I think that that's one of the major things in education is being in settings where, you have students around you that also look like you. And I think that that was something that was definitely hard for him as a kid. And I know that within sports settings, he was able to find some of that cultural support, which is really helpful for him. I know he played soccer at Seaholm and also basketball at Seaholm, and was a part of some really good teams. And they traveled down to stayed a few years, and I think that sports for him was a huge outlet in getting that support. And so I think that's what we're about, right? With athletics is finding ways to provide that support. And so I think for him, yeah, the biggest challenge was in academic spaces, finding that critical cultural awareness in the area. And I think sports kind of led him to find that, because he ended up being a basketball coach at Kent Meridian High School, which at the time was the most diverse high school in the state. And so I think sports for him were a huge outlet. And, he was a part of some very, very good teams, very, very good teams at Kent Meridian High School. And so he's been, a huge mentor to me, and, a lot of love for him. I'm sure he's going to watch this. So, if you're watching this, all love to you.
You yourself, as a student athlete at Western, as an ambassador and as an advocate on campus, you had to have learned a lot during this process of your 4 years at Western. And I'm going to simply state this, what do you want your legacy to be at Western? Because you've just talked about some amazing things. And is there anyone that you're kind of helping mentor right now that you want to kind of help pass the torch to help keep this going? And kind of I guess a follow-up long-winded question would be, how do we keep Myles Smith's passion going when you graduate from Western?
Yeah, that's a big question. Man, there's a student I'm mentoring right now. His name's Savon, and we frequently talk throughout the quarter, and he's someone who I see kind of see in myself. He's just really passionate about kinesiology, and he's been a part of a lot of these conversations as well. And I've also talked to him about social justice and what's been going on. Whenever we get a chance to, and I would say for him, I definitely see him as someone who can continue this legacy at Western, and specifically mentoring students and helping address equity in science spaces, because he's also going to be in the kinesiology major as well. And we actually have a program at Western called the Advancing Excellence in Equity in Science program. And so I really see him as someone who can help foster this legacy and continue this legacy of addressing, equity in spaces. And I would say overall, just for any students out there that are listening, or folks a part of the WW community, that that have heard a little bit about what I've done, and if I've touched any of y'all, I just want to relay the message that it takes time and it takes effort to address issues in these spaces, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I would say, like, as I mentioned before, I wouldn't be here today without the folks that helped mentor me and give me the confidence to help build this legacy. And so I would say, like, network as much as you can. There's so many great professors and resources across campus that can help you learn more about systems of oppression. And so, I've talked to a lot of people that care and they just want to know how to do the work. And so it's all about, reading and talking to people and listening. A lot of times when I go into meetings, I might not really know what to say. And a lot of times I'm like, man, this is the first time I'm hearing about this, but if we're on Zoom, I put myself on mute and I just take notes. And I think that's all about, educating yourself and just spending time when you can. That's what I would say.
It's pretty awesome. I can't wait to see what you do, and I can't wait to see the impact you're going to have. And I'm always going to be touching base with you. I know that much. But one of the things that you just mentioned was the social justice stuff that's been going on, and with social media, how much is out there. How has all this affected you? The last year alone with COVID, and then the Black Lives Matter movement and all the injustice that has been done. How has this affected you as a young man? And how do you help people get through this? People on your team, friends, roommates. How has this affected Myles?
Yeah, so it's been, there's been times where I've broken down over the last 6-7 months, and shed tears and felt confused and just frustrated, and also really angry about what's happened, and specifically within this past election. And there's just been so many things that have that have angered me, and I think that I've just had a fluctuation of emotions. Like some weeks I'm like I want to address these issues. I feel inspired because I want to make the change, and then seeing something happen, like in the news, it just kind of like sets you back, and you're just like, man, I feel really down and kind of lost. And so I think that the last 6-7 months I've had just a fluctuation of emotions. And with that though, it was really helpful being able to vent with folks, whether it was like coaches or teammates in the department. And I think that with my teammates, it's definitely affected them, because we've had a lot of conversations about what's happened on the phone late at night, and I think it's affected all of us, right? And so the biggest thing I've learned, I would say, during COVID and during this time of social justice is just the importance of connection. And social connection helps reduce like our stress levels, and I think being separated and seeing a lot of the hardships that have happened have been extremely difficult, right? And with that, there's been a lot of spaces that have opened up to people in the community, like online Zoom spaces. I go to a couple where I just get some mentorship from people, and that's been really helpful for me. And so, again, like I said before, with what's happened, I definitely would not be here where I am today without the people that did, have my back through this whole time. And, big shout out to, my group, the Black and Brown Male Success Collective, for that too, because we meet weekly, and we've kept in touch back since March. March, April, May. And so, yeah.
Pretty cool group there. Through some of these stressful times, is there a quote or a poem or a Black history leader that you kind of look to for inspiration when you're trying to get through those tough days, when you were balancing practice and school and Zoom meetings, and you may not have left your house or your apartment for a couple days? Is there a something that you just have a go-to, or someone that you look up to that you say, I really need to reach out to this person to lift you up?
Yeah. So I really loved like Dr. King's poetry. And so whenever I am feeling, stress and whatnot, and confused and a little bit lost during this time, I say I definitely resort to poetry. And so, Dr. King, Langston Hughes, Malcolm X, a lot of the words that they've, put forth for people to, still hold to this day, are just, they're brilliant. And a lot of times when I watch what they say, live, right, they're saying this live, it's extremely empowering. And so I would say, like, looking at past influential Black leaders in the past, and also athletes too, I'd say, like, are very inspiring to me. And I know, like, John Carlos, bronze medalist in the 1968 Olympics, is someone that I actually got a chance to see speak last year with the Black and Brown Male Success Collective at Highline Community College. We got a chance to see John Carlos speak. And for those of you that may not know John Carlos, he stood with Tommy Smith and held the Black Power sign. And I didn't know this, but they actually went out and they didn't have socks or shoes on. And this was to show, Black poverty and to address it internationally in an international space. And so I would say, like, hearing stories about influential leaders, whether it was in the social justice movement or, specifically in athletics, I would say, like, have really helped me during this time. Because, a lot of folks back then, they started their, careers so early in social justice, and they dedicated their whole lives to this movement. And for me, that's so inspiring, because they spent day after day working to create a better future for, folks like myself today who do have, the opportunity to be able to navigate in these settings. And so I would say in those times, I always look back at them because they dealt with so much, right? And worked extremely hard to create, the opportunities that I do have today. So.
You mentioned earlier that you're a writer and a poet, and a lot of those parallels kind of show in who you look up to. The power of the pen is pretty amazing when you can sit down with your thoughts and I know that's something that you do a lot. You mentioned you look at some third grade readings of yourself, but you read a poem during that conference over the summer that moved me, and I want to give you the opportunity here to read that poem for our audience, because I was moved by it, and I want to give you the opportunity, because not only to see the words from it, but to hear you say it is pretty amazing, Myles. So if you have that in front of you, I'd love to give you the chance to recite your poem.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I'll give it a couple moments and I'll start reading it. So thank you for allowing us to do this. Here's my Black Lives Matter poem. Black Lives Matter to me means remembering that my ancestors are my wildest dreams to see. You see, a tree cannot be without strong roots, fresh water, and a vibrant sun. And when being Black in America, you need the strength to navigate the system, enough love to replenish your spirit from the hatred, and a powerful light inside of you to illuminate resilience from the injustices brought upon you. Not all of us can find this light, however, because on the inside, it feels like we've been given nothing to shine on. Our country's soils have been embedded with seeds of illusion that lie in confusion. We've never known the land of the free or the home of the brave. How can I be free but still hold the last names of the ones who enslaved me? But dare me question now, years later, the freedoms they supposedly gave me. It enrages me because while America can make you feel like a dreamer, they also institutionalize you. That shouldn't surprise you, that's what lies do. Our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness has been denied to. But let me confide to you, it's benevolence we want. We all want to be guided to our excellence in this world. We're all stars looking to radiate our energy out in the universe. And right now, it is up to us to look out for the lone stars that have been lost in the sky. And as George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor fly high, and we let their souls rest in peace as we say goodbye. We're tired of being numb to cry from seeing the pain and the hurt in our mother's eyes. It is I that often put a pen to page to mend my rage, because at a young age, I learned that education is the great equalizer. It's not money that makes you richer, it's your mental. And while my voice may be gentle, it's filled with emotion because loving another human being should be fundamental. None of us are meant to struggle. To go far, we must go together. And to me, that's what Black Lives Matter means. It's being an advocate and standing in solidarity. And I hope you can accept my peace and blessings and join me in procuring change.
That's great, man. It doesn't, every time I hear you say that or when you send it to me, it has a different meaning. And I've really dove in and tried to learn as much as I can. But to hear you say that and this expression and then learn about what you're doing about this is really special, Myles. I'm going to say it as someone that, my job is to publicize a program and a department that you're part of. But to see what you and so many others on our campus are doing to help and to educate. And I know that you don't take that lightly because education is not necessarily something that you need to do, but what you're doing on those words in that poem are just amazing. And I thank you for reading it for us. Thank you. We'll have it in the text of this too, so make sure people can see that. But really powerful stuff, man. I'm really proud of you. Like I said, I'm proud of you on the track. I'm proud of you in the classroom. I'm proud of you for what you've done in the community. But I'm even more proud of how you handle stuff like this. And with Black History Month is a good time for us to kind of put this out there. But it's not going to stop in February for me, or it's not going to stop for our department. But thank you for reading that, because that's pretty cool, and it has a lot to do with your legacy, I think, at Western. I can see someday, the next Myles is going to have a copy of that poem, and I know I'm going to have it printed out in my office too, because that is pretty amazing. I guess my last question, more surrounding this, before I do want to end on kind of a track and field student athlete question, is ultimately the work that we have to do in this area involves everybody. It involves everybody. You, as a white male that works in a higher education, how do I get involved? How do I stay involved? And how do I dive into these topics on a more regular basis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And thank you for your words about, my poem. I really do appreciate that. And, with folks wanting to learn more about addressing social injustice, really what it comes down to is, initially asking yourself, like, how much I care, right? Like, how much time am I going to put in? Who do I know? Who can I talk to? I think, understanding your place in a space is very vital. And when, you go into spaces where you're with BIPOC and you're trying to learn, it's really important, to listen and, take notes and write down everything you can learn from us. Cause, we live the experience, in this country, and we hold the traumas that, our ancestors went through. And so I think that, for folks that want to learn, it's all about, connecting with, folks out there that do want to, network and tell their stories and make our communities better. And so I think, like, one, finding a space where you can go and listen is really important. And then also, finding more resources on, online, on social media that you can go to learn, whether it's just, seeing an update every day on, current issues. That's really helpful, because, now you understand, like, okay, I know what's going on in my own community. So talking to folks in your own community is very helpful, to start. And like I said, research articles, journal articles are very vital. But also, like I mentioned earlier, counter storytelling, right? is so important, because not everyone is able to write, you know, a journal article. It's great to have those for the folks that, you know, do want to have, you know, that research-based type material. So go to that. But if you're someone that likes, you know, listening to like the anecdotes, find folks in our communities. I know there's a lot of people on campus that do know spaces that talk about these issues. We do. You know, if anyone wants to talk to me after they watch this video, you know, you're more than welcome to find me on social media or on email to talk to me about where you can go to learn, and also find spaces that, you know, are open to, you know, to engaging in dialogue across social bounds, across racial bounds. You know, that's what I would say.
Good advice. The key there for me is like conversation and listening. You know, I'm taking I think more of us need to take the approach of ears open and mouth shut when it comes to learning about this stuff. And I like, even today with you, I learned a lot. I'm so proud of you. And it's so fun to hear you talk about these things and see the passion in your eyes, because they're serious topics. And I know the work that you're doing is exactly what needs to be done. So keep it up. And you know, I do want to end on a track and field question, because a big part of who you are is the closer. I call you the closer because I've seen you race, and you know, I get excited at track meets because it's not something I used to be part of. Track and field was something, and I've seen you run the final leg of a relay, and it's exciting. And I see pictures of you closing out a GNAC championship. But tell us about that feeling, the passion that's carried over into all that you've talked about today. Sounds like it also happens on the track. Tell us about getting that baton from the number 3 runner on your 4x400 team, and what that feeling is like after that perfect relay exchange, and what it's like to chase that finish line. And you know, I guess I just want to know how it feels, and you know, tell us about that last race I believe that you were in, was closing out the 4x400 at the GNAC championships. I believe you kind of dove across the finish line and you won by the slimmest of margins. So tell us what that feels like, and how much pride you take in that role.
Yeah, you know, I take tremendous pride in, you know, running anchor. You know, as a freshman, I had a chance to run anchor against UBC and edge out, you know, UBC at the very end. And that was kind of the first time where I felt like people got a chance to, you know, see some of my abilities and, you know, have some confidence in me, right? Because like I said, I came from such humble beginnings. And, you know, when I start every leg, I always just think about like how far I've come, you know, being a walk-on, being, you know, coming off of, you know, a major injury and not really knowing like if I could really do this. I always think about like all those moments where I just didn't know if I could really continue, or if I didn't have, you know, the speed or whatever it was. I always think about like those times where I doubted myself when I start. So, you know, when Brian's coming, when John's coming in, I just think about that in my mind. But I also think about the people too that have just, you know, helped me get to where I am, like my coaches who trust me to run anchor, and my teammates that, you know, trust me and believe in me to run anchor. I think about the people that, you know, want to see someone like just give it their all. And so when I get that baton, I reflect on those things. And that first 100, I sometimes I don't even remember what happens until the last 100, because there's so much emotion in that like small time frame. And so, you know, last year, start out 2020 with the GNAC championship win in the 4x4 and run against a really good Western Oregon team was, you know, it was a hype setting. Derek Holdsworth was the anchor for Western Oregon. I believe he was the 4th fastest 800 runner across all divisions, D1, D2, D3. And, you know, I remember when I got the baton, I think I had a few steps ahead on him. And so, you know, I was pretty nervous because I felt like, you know, there could be a chance that, you know, I get caught. You're right. And so I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely thinking about that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely was a little bit worried. And so, you know, I remember coming, I grabbed the baton and I just stayed focused. I kept my mindset on myself, not necessarily worried about anybody else in the building, and just focus on what I can do, right? And so as I was coming around, I could hear people saying like, you know, he's coming, like you got it, finish strong. And so you know, I was coming down that final 60 meters, I think it was. I could just sense that it was getting close. And so, you know, it's crazy. It was just off instinct. I just dove. I wasn't planning on doing it. It was just at that last second, I just had an instinct just to dive across the finish line. I'm thankful that I did, because that was such a close race. I remember talking to him after, and he was just like, he's like, man, that was just very well run. He's like, respect, you know, and a lot of respect for him too, because he ran a great race, and everyone in that relay made it happen. And so, you know, John, Sonny, you know, and Mark, they gave it their all, and you know, they always, you know, and Bryant too. You know, I believe Bryant was sick that meet, but you know, whoever's running on the relay, we all believe in each other, and we always, you know, do a little talk before our race, and you know, just tell each other to go to get after it. And I know that, you know, when I start the leg, they trust me and I trust them. So it's really a mutual trust within our relay, because we all came in as freshmen, you know, so we've grown a lot, you know, like I know all those guys really well. And so that junior season 4x4 was pretty big. Yeah.
So many parallels to draw on here, though, after talking with you, is, you know, your leadership on the track team and the anchor leg of relays, to your leadership in, you know, topics like diversity and equity and BIPOC academic support, the term advocacy, and, you know, all those things seem to tie together. And Myles, you know, you are a third guest in this series. Shelton Diggs, a men's basketball player, Kiana Gandy, a women's basketball player, and now you, and we'll have a couple more. But just hearing about the things that you're doing in the classroom, in the community, on the track, inspire us. And I don't want to say that lightly. I learn a ton from the student athletes that I get to publicize in my job. And I enjoy seeing your smile in the hallway in Carver, and talking track and learning, but also just these conversations are so powerful. So I thank you for joining us. I thank you for having this conversation with us, and being so honest and humble at the same time, and educational. And I can't wait to see the great things that you're going to do in your career, and the impact that you've made at Western will be long felt. And I know it's not even close to over, because graduation is coming. But thank you for joining us on Viking Voices. Thank you for being inspiring. Thank you for being a Viking.
Absolutely. Once again, it was a great conversation, and look forward to hearing the future speakers that come on, and all the best wishes to you as always. And yeah, it was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Myles. As always, be safe out there, and go Vikings.